Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
We are a nation in decline.
Experts are preparing for what is known as Disease X, or the next pandemic.
What we are seeing is a revolution against the system.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a live stream here, just kind of last minute Sunday. It's February 4th, 2024, and we've got a money grab on the table. Speaker Johnson says it's dead on arrival, and I hope he sticks to that. It's the Emergency National Security Supplemental Appropriations Act 2024. That's the official name of the supplemental bill, which came out today, and it's 370 pages long with a $118 billion overall price tag. And I wanted to just talk about that today. Hopefully it is dead on arrival and it doesn't pass through the system. But unfortunately, I think things are so corrupt, and even on both sides, Republican, Democrat, eventually they're going to come to a compromise on this, where they all feel they're getting what they want and they can continue the endless wars and whatnot that we have here under Joe Biden, Crooked Joe. But we're going to take a look at what people are saying and what is in this bill. We're going to see what's going on, what people are saying, and then we're going to look at a summary of the actual bill sort of in depth. So thank you all if you're joining me. Hello, Army Rangers. Good to see you. Appreciate you tuning in. We're just going to do a quick little review here and get on with it. So let's take a quick look here. We've got this here. So breaking news, the bipartisan border bill negotiated by Republican Senator James Langford has officially been released. $60 billion in military aid for Ukraine, $14 billion in military aid to Israel, $20 billion for border security. They call it border security, but we'll look at that further here. Let's see. What do we got? What really is this? I'll go ahead and share this with you guys here. Moving on, Disclosed TV laid it out as well. They said this is $12 billion more than Biden requested 4 months ago. Hello. U.S. senators release $118 billion border security foreign aid bill. And that's what we're talking about. Roz Alert says they just have a problem here. There's nothing for the residents of East Palestine in the bill, and there's no allocation for the deadly fire that occurred in Maui, Hawaii. And a lot of people keep bringing this up. Whatever happened to all those missing kids from Maui? I don't know. But yeah, the bill fails to actually address things that the American people want to see in large. Onward here. Same information here. Speaker Johnson came out a couple hours ago and published this video on x.com. Let's take a quick listen to what he's saying here in a second. Hear what he's saying about the border. He's been pretty adamant about the border. A lot of people like what they're hearing. However, he's been pretty much a letdown from the beginning, in my opinion. Pretty useless, but hopefully he does some good. Let's hear what he has to say here.
The President of the United States opened the border. We documented 64 specific actions that Joe Biden and his agencies have taken to create this catastrophe. They did it intentionally. That's why his approval rating is in the tank. 60% of the people disapprove by your latest poll. The reason the presidency is imperiled, as your opening monologue stated, is because this is an abject failure of leadership. The American people are done with this. The border has to be secured. And the president has the authority right now. He doesn't need another act of Congress. He could do it right now, but he's unwilling to do it.
That's so true. And I hope Speaker Mike Johnson doesn't look at this bill and go, oh, that's a lot of money for the border. This is great. You know, what a great compromise. Let's do it. because Greg Price pointed this out on X.com. And he says, not only does this bill codify 1.5 million illegal border crossings into law, but the border emergency that automatically gets implemented at 5,000 crossings per day in a week can be overturned by Joe Biden. Red alert. Hello. He writes, in the case of 1.5 million illegals, and in case 1.5 million illegals isn't enough, it also locks in green card giveaways through 2030. And he's taken some snapshots here. Mandatory activation. The secretary shall activate the Border Emergency Authority if, during a period of 7 consecutive calendar days, there is an average of 5,000 or more aliens who are encountered each day, or on any one calendar day, a combined total of 8,500 or more aliens are encountered. Goes on here. In general, if the president finds that it is in the national interest to temporarily suspend the Border Emergency Authority, the president may direct the secretary to suspend the use of the Border Emergency Authority on an emergency basis. Wow. Onward, it says Section 201 of the Immigration and Nationality Act is amended in subsection A and subsection C by adding at the end of the following for fiscal years 25, 26, 27, 28, and 2029, 512,000 shall be substituted for 480,000 in paragraph 1A and 1 and 2, 200, blah, blah, blah. Just confirming what he said prior. Holy moly. So it's borders, it's a border security bill, but really it's not doing anything great for the border. It's just keeping on the same clown show of facilitating people staying in the country, awaiting trial, giving them cash cards, keeping the problem alive and well. Drug trafficking, human trafficking, so many issues at the border. And this just keeps that ball rolling. I don't see any benefits to this money at the border. And not to mention, it's such a small section of the entire bill. And of course, again, another huge bill, 370 pages, and they lump all this stuff together. Everyone can find something they like in it if you don't read it too closely. Oh gosh, hopefully this is dead on arrival, man. This is crazy stuff. We have a couple polls running on X.com, not me personally, but we have this account here. It has 369 votes, and they asked, the Senate just released the bipartisan $118 billion Emergency National Security Supplemental Appropriations Act. Over half, $60 billion, goes to Ukraine, $14 billion to Israel, $10 billion to Gaza. Only 17% is for border security. Do you support this legislation? And let's look at the current tally on a couple of these polls. Out of 400, 6% say yes, it's a good bill. 93.7% say no, try again. And 0.3% say undecided. 399 votes. Oops, I'm going to go ahead and retweet this, see if they could get more votes there. BNO News also put out a poll. This one has a larger sample size, although this is just starting to unfold. We'll have to revisit it in the morning and see where we're at. 4,547 votes. The question is, the U.S. Senate will vote on a $118 billion bill, including $60 billion for Ukraine, $14 billion for Israel, and $20 billion for border security. Do you support this bill? 32.7% of the about 4,500 voters said yes. 57% said no, 10% are undecided, and that's estimates there. Wow. Yes, please hit the like button. We're just going to go over a little bit more of this, but that in a nutshell is what they're putting in front of us here. This ridiculous long bill, and hopefully it doesn't see anything forward. It gets smushed and put away, but they're just going to go back to the drawing board, and they will eventually come to some conclusions, maybe divide it up and continue their endless wars and pilfering of the U.S. tax dollars. Man, they're going to get their money one way or another. I mean, look at their donors. Look at what's going on here. The corruption is just maddening, but here we are. Hopefully it's not this one, but it will be one eventually. I'm sorry to be so cynical, but that's just how I see it. Washington Post published an article about it. The $118 billion national security package is a top priority for President Biden, but faces stiff opposition from former President Donald Trump and his allies. That's good. It says here that after months of talks, Senate negotiators on Sunday released a sweeping bipartisan border security deal that is aimed at discouraging migrants from crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. The way they write this is funny because they just say that. It's not. We just looked at it, and that's not necessarily the case. This is ridiculous fake news coverage of this bill. Of course. It says here, the $118 billion national security legislation also includes billions of dollars in funding for Ukraine, Israel, and the Indo-Pacific, but it has a politically perilous path ahead. Even before seeing its contents, lawmakers on both the right and, to the lesser extent, the left, flanks in Congress have slammed the measure, and House Speaker Mike Johnson has called it dead on arrival in the chamber. Former President Donald Trump, who has made the border a core campaign issue, opposes the deal. They go on to talk about other politicians and whatnot on this deal. But man, of course, they make it seem like it's good for the border, everybody. Support this bill. You care about the border, right? You care about the border. Well, here's money to protect the border. Not falling for it. No, siree. Going to the chats real quick. Hello, Army Rangers. Yes, please hit the like button and share. I appreciate all of y'all tuning in and doing that. Some trucks are heading to the border in California. Interesting. Wow. Yeah, the truckers are on a good one. We'll keep our eye on that going down. All right, let's move onward. And hello, RM. Good evening to you. Good to see you. Thank you for tuning in. Let's continue forward and do a quick review of this, and then we'll sign off for the night. How does that sound? So here is the bill itself, and it's linked in the comments section on Rumble and on YouTube and on x.com. I've posted all these links of the actual bill, and here it is here. A whopping 370 pages. I'm not going to go through this. As a matter of fact, I haven't even read this thing as it came out like an hour ago. I've read some of it, but boy, is it long. I did find a summary of it here. The National Security Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2024 summary. And we'll go through some of this. This is 19 pages. We'll go through some of it, and I don't love it. Not even close. Not even a little bit. Nothing in it do I like. So let's take a quick look at this. Assistance to Ukraine, Title I, Department of Defense. So number one here, assistance to Ukraine, $48.3 billion for continued U.S. support to Ukraine in its fight against Russia through military training, intelligence sharing, increased presence in the European Command Area of Responsibility, and other support activities through December 31st, 2024, including $19.85 billion to replenish U.S. military weapons and equipment provided to Ukraine from the Department of Defense inventory, $13.8 billion to allow Ukraine to rearm itself through the purchase of weapons and munitions from the U.S. Defense Industrial Base, and $14.8 billion for continued U.S. support to Ukraine through military training, intelligence sharing, increased presence, and other support activities. The bill also includes $8 million for the Department of Defense Inspector General, who serves as the Special Inspector General for Operation Atlantic Resolve, to continue the exercise oversight over U.S. assistance to Ukraine. Assistance to Israel and U.S. operations in the Middle East provides $10.6 billion to support Israel, including $4 billion for Israeli missile defense capabilities and $1.2 billion for the procurement of the Iron Beam missile defense system. It also provides $2.44 billion to support U.S. operations in the U.S. Central Command Area of Operations and to replace combat expenditures for weapons in the Red Sea. Wow. Deterring the Chinese government. The bill includes $2.58 billion to bolster U.S. and allied capabilities in the Indo-Pacific and deter China, including $1.9 billion to be invested in the U.S. industrial base to replenish U.S. weapons provided to Taiwan, $542.2 million to address the commander of the Indo-Pacific Command's unfunded requirements, and $133 million to enhance the U.S. industrial base capacity for critical cruise missile components. Enhancing the submarine industrial base. The bill includes $3.3 billion to enhance the U.S. submarine industrial base in support of AUKUS, to include continued dry dock construction at public shipyards referenced in Title V. Interesting. Restoring U.S. readiness. Across all categories of defense funding, the bill provides a total of $34.9 billion to restore the readiness of the U.S. military by replenishing the weapons and munitions transferred to our partners or strengthening the U.S. defense industrial base through investments to improve and increase production capacity, including $26.15 billion in total replenishment for Department of Defense stocks provided to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, $3.3 billion for the submarine industrial base, and $5.4 billion in additional procurement and production expansion for artillery, air defense munitions, countering unmanned aerial systems, and critical munition components. Title II, Department of Energy. This is a very interesting one. Isotopes. Provides $98 million for investments in the development and production of isotopes. National Nuclear Security Administration, it provides $149 million for the National Nuclear Security Administration to respond to the security situation in Ukraine. Domestic uranium production provides $2.72 billion in repurposed funding to support domestic uranium enrichment to bolster production of civil nuclear fuel and advanced nuclear fuel. Interesting that they put in the nuclear Department of Energy section in here, as we're seeing the need for these nuclear uranium and things skyrocket as the supply is, I think, pretty constricted. I was reading last week something on that. Very interesting. Title III, Department of Homeland Security, Nonprofit Security Grants Program, provides $400 million for the Nonprofit Security Grant Program at the Federal Emergency Management Agency. That's $400 million there for FEMA. Title IV, Department of Health and Human Services, Refugee and Entrant Assistance, provides $2.334 billion for assistance for newly arrived refugees, including extending authorization for Ukrainians granted parole in fiscal year 2024 to be eligible for the same refugee benefits as those granted parole in fiscal year 2023 and fiscal year 2022. So this is actually just helping get more immigrants in. Right? Title V, Department of Defense, Military Construction, Navy, and Marine Corps, includes funding for dry dock construction of U.S. public shipyards to modernize submarine maintenance infrastructure, particularly in support of AUKUS requirements. Title VI, Department of State and USAID, Operations, provides $299 million to sustain the protection of U.S. diplomatic facilities in Ukraine, Israel, and other at-risk facilities, and to provide services to American citizens in need overseas. Where's the money for the people here? Where's the money for at home? I know there's a little bit of military stuff. They're trying to keep it all up and good, but it seems like it's all just going directly to other countries right away, under the guise of, we're rebuilding our supply. No, you're saying it's going all over there immediately. We're not rebuilding our supply, in my opinion. That's what it seems like. It goes on. Economic assistance to Ukraine and countries impacted by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It provides $7.85 billion for direct budget support for Ukraine, including a prohibition on reimbursement of pensions, and an additional $1.58 billion to help fund the future of a self-reliant Ukrainian economy in priority sectors such as private sector growth, transportation, and energy. It includes an additional $25 million for USAID's Office of Transition Initiative to support recovery and resilience efforts in Ukrainian territory reclaimed from Russia and in Moldova, and $50 million to respond to food insecurity, including as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russia. Security assistance to Ukraine and countries impacted by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, provides $1.6 billion in foreign military financing to address Ukraine and other regional partners' air defense, artillery, maritime security, and maintenance and sustainment requirements. $300 million to help Ukraine protect its borders and promote the rule of law, and $100 million to support demining, counterterrorism, and non-proliferation programs. Assistance to Israel provides $3.5 billion in foreign military financing to help Israel reestablish territorial security and deterrence. Additional assistance from partners in the Middle East provides $85 million for U.S. efforts to support Arab partners in the Middle East, including to enhance counterterrorism capabilities. Wowee. What else? Countering the aggression of malign influence of the People's Republic of China, provides $2 billion in foreign military financing to support critical partners in the Indo-Pacific region, includes 2 provisions that enable enhanced support for the world's poorest countries to mitigate the economic impacts of Russia's war against Ukraine and the exploitation of heightened debt vulnerabilities by the People's Republic of China, and use economic coercion to advance its interests. Oh my gosh. Humanitarian assistance provides $9.2 billion in Division A to sustain global humanitarian assistance efforts through the Department of State and USAID by providing emergency food, shelter, and basic services to populations suffering the impacts of a confluence of complex and protracted crises, including in Ukraine, Gaza, the West Bank, East Africa, South Asia, and elsewhere. An additional $850 million is included in Division B for the Western Hemisphere. Whoa, great. Oh, good. They concluded $850 million for the Western Hemisphere. Whew. Good draft. Good bill. All right. My gosh, this is insane. What a bill. Will it just be dead on arrival, guys? Hey, wow. I hope so. Let's go through a little bit more of this bill here. Other general provisions. General provisions include provides flexibility in consular operations to enhance preparedness for emergency evacuations or to prevent or respond to security situations. Increased presidential drawdown authority. Enhances stockpile authority for the Department of Defense in Israel. Extends oversight provisions regarding U.S. assistance for Ukraine, prohibits U.S. funding for the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. Interesting. Includes a certification requirement and additional oversight provisions regarding humanitarian assistance for Gaza. So didn't something just happen with the United Nations Relief and Work Agency? Let's see here. Wasn't there a huge controversy with how they were corrupt or something? If anybody has that story, I'd appreciate it. They were the ones that were accused of being involved in the October 7th Hamas attack, and it's now they're cutting their funds. Wow, it looks like they were caught in an act of a false flag. Like, hello, you're funding every side of this conflict, and this bill just throws money at everything. It's nuts to me, absolutely nuts. Let's look at Title VII, general provisions of this act. General provisions. Technical budgetary provisions. Requires the administration to submit a strategy regarding the United States support for Ukraine against aggression by the government of the Russian Federation. Requires briefings to Congress on the status and welfare of hostages being held in Gaza. Division B. Border Security and Combating Fentanyl Supplemental Appropriations Act 2024, Title I, Department of Justice, Executive Office for Immigration Review. Provides $444 million to hire additional immigration judge teams and to increase the capacity of the immigration courts to expeditiously process and adjudicate cases and to support a long-standing program that provides legal representation for certain adults who cannot represent themselves due to serious mental or developmental disabilities. Right, so more money for that. Criminal Division provides $11.8 million to support the efforts of Joint Task Force Alpha to combat human trafficking and smuggling that affect the U.S. border communities. $11.8 million for that. Really? That's it. 11.8 million for the human trafficking. 11.8 million out of how many billions going to other countries? United States Marshals Service, USMS, federal prisoner detention, $210 million for the USMS to meet housing, medical, and transportation requirements for an increased inmate population, including those individuals charged with human and drug trafficking crimes and violating U.S. immigration laws who remain in USMS custody while awaiting and during trial before the federal judiciary. So just more money for housing of criminals. Let's see. Federal Bureau of Investigation, $204 million for the FBI to address the significant and growing backlog of DNA samples collected from migrants encountered by the U.S. Border Patrol. Wow, a focus on DNA. That's interesting. Uh-oh, here comes the conspiracy, people. The volume of non-U.S. citizens engaged at the southern border exceeds the FBI laboratory's capability to process DNA samples for Combined DNA Index Systems entry, CODIS. Combined DNA Index Systems. It's really interesting that they collect all this DNA, man. Wow. Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, provides $23.2 million to disrupt and dismantle the Mexican cartels responsible for trafficking fentanyl across the border, including by enhancing the DEA's laboratory analysis of illicit fentanyl samples to trace illicit fentanyl samples back to manufacturers, supporting the DEA's Operation Overdrive, and bolstering the DEA's criminal drug network targeting efforts through data system improvements. This doesn't seem like a lot of money to me. Title II, to at least like going to the U.S. and this border stuff. I don't know how long this will fund that stuff, but man, it's all so corrupt, isn't it? Title II, Department of Homeland Security. $33 million. It provides $33 million to the Office of the Secretary and Executive Management for monitoring, analyzing, public reporting on, and projecting migration flows and the impacts policy changes and funding have on flows and resource requirements for border security, immigration enforcement, and immigration services. Also funds reporting and oversight relating to expanded detention capacity. There's more money for U.S. Customs and Border Protection, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Federal Emergency Management Agency. This is FEMA. It provides $100 million for Operation Stone Garden grants under the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, including not less than $25 million for states not along the southwest border. These grants provide additional resources to state, local, tribal, and territorial law enforcement agencies to jointly enhance security along the United States land and water borders with federal law enforcement. Funds support recipients' use of their inherent law enforcement authorities to support the border security mission. FEMA. So are they going to deploy FEMA here? Is that what's going on? U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services provides $3.99 billion for U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, for personnel, facilities, and related costs to meet new operational requirements. Funds support new hiring across USCIS, including 4,338 asylum officers. Of this amount, $147.9 million is included for costs related to new asylum appeals, a new asylum appeals board. We've got some federal law enforcement training centers. So this provides $56.702 million for the federal law enforcement training centers for training related expenses, including facilities for instructors, tuition, and other related costs for the new hires funded in this act. Interesting. Federal law enforcement training centers. General provisions. And it goes on and on and on. Title III, Department of Health and Human Services, Refugee and Entrant Assistance and Unaccompanied Children's Program provides $350 million for the Department of Health and Human Services to provide legal counseling for unaccompanied children age 13 or younger who are in removal proceedings. Department of State and USAID, Title IV, Department of State and U.S. Agency for International Development. This provides $415 million to reduce irregular migration in the Western Hemisphere, including by supporting partner country efforts to improve the integration of migrants and enhancing partner capacity to receive migrants returned and removed from the United States. Provides $25 million for programs to counter the flow of fentanyl precursors, and other synthetic drugs into the United States. All right. Wow. Title I, Capacity Building, Division C, the Border Act of 2024. Direct Hire Authority, ICE Direct Hire Authority, re-employment of civilian retirees to meet exceptional employment needs. Section 3104, establishment of special pay rate for asylum officers. This establishes a special base rate of pay for asylum officers at grades 1 through 15, which is otherwise applicable general schedule base rate plus 15%. Okay. Hiring waivers, hiring flexibility. Border patrols in here. It goes on and on and on. But you know what? I don't trust it for 1 second with all this other stuff. This is just one of those bills. Asylum processing enhancements, combined screenings, credible fear standard and asylum bars at screening interview, internal relocation, establishes an additional asylum bar under Section 208 if there are responsible grounds to believe an individual could have internally relocated in their country of origin or country of last habitual residence in lieu of seeking protection from the United States. Okay. Interesting. Border Emergency Authority. This is what Chuck Callisto was talking about, or no, it was Greg Price. This is interesting. Section 3301, Border Emergency Authority, creates Section 244B of the Immigration and National Security Act, which grants the Secretary of Homeland Security new emergency authority to respond to extraordinary migration circumstances. The Border Emergency Authority may be exercised if the 7-day average number of cumulative encounters, if inadmissible aliens, is between 4,000 and 5,000 per day, and must be exercised if the 7-day average is above 5,000 per day. Exercise of the authority is also required if the number of encounters on a single day exceeds 8,500. Unaccompanied minors from non-contiguous countries are not included in the total number of encounters for the purpose of this section. Whoa. They're not including unaccompanied minors. That's interesting. When use of the emergency authority is authorized, the Secretary has the authority to prohibit the entry into the U.S. of all individuals except unaccompanied minors between ports of entry, and may only screen individuals for eligibility for withholding or of removal or protection under the Convention Against Torture. Concurrently, U.S. Customs and Border Protection is required to continue processing a minimum of 1,400 inadmissible aliens per day across Southwest land ports of entry under expedited removal or the 235B non-custodial removal proceedings contained in this title, ensuring that access to the asylum system remains available. Requires the Secretary to suspend exercise of the Border Emergency Authority within 14 days of the 7-day average number of encounters falling below 75% of the total applicable encounter number, which initially authorized the Secretary to exercise the Border Emergency Authority. Provides that the authority shall not be activated for more than 270 days in the first calendar year, 225 days in the second calendar year, and 180 days in the third calendar year. Authorizes the president to suspend the border emergency on an emergency basis for up to 45 days if it is in the national interest. Excuse me? Authorizes the president to suspend the border emergency? Why? What? If it's in the national interest? If it's in the national interest, or are they talking about like Crooked Joe's personal interest of destroying America? I don't know. It's not clear. It says here, provides that the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia has sole and original jurisdiction over any challenge arising from the Secretary's authority to exercise the border emergency authority, impose a 1-year inadmissibility bar or on any alien who has been removed 2 or more times pursuant to the border emergency authority. They go into fentanyl, fulfilling promises to Afghan allies, support for Afghan allies outside the United States, directs the Secretary of State to designate an office at the Department of State responsible for overseeing specific applications from Afghan nationals, issuing visas and travel documents, and providing services that would otherwise be fulfilled by an embassy. Requires the Secretary to respond to congressional inquiries regarding the status of applications by or on behalf of Afghan nationals. What? So what's normally done fulfilled by an embassy, they're creating an office through the Department of State that does this for Afghans? What? Conditional permanent resident status for eligible individuals. Authorize the Secretary of Homeland Security to adjust the status of Afghan nationals who were admitted or paroled in the United States after July 30th, 2021 to conditional lawful permanent residence status following completion of a vetting process which is equivalent in rigor to that of the U.S. Refugee Assistance Program. So make them citizens, make the illegal citizens. It's just as rigorous. We just said it here in the bill. To be eligible for adjustment, an individual must not be subject to any grounds of inadmissibility under Section 212 of the Immigration and Nationality Act. However, the Secretary is permitted to waive application of grounds of inadmissibility under Section 212 for humanitarian or family unit purposes, except certain criminals, security, and related grounds as specific in this section. So they're able to waive this process and just, you're a citizen now. Yeah. What? Provides that individuals granted conditional permanent resident status and their child or spouse who is the beneficiary of an immigrant petition under Section 204 of the Immigration and Nationality Act are exempt from numerical limitations under Section 201, 202, and 203 of the Immigration and Nationality Act. I wonder what's in those sections. Authorizes conditional lawful permanent resident status to be revoked. Requires the Office of Refugee Resettlement to schedule non-adversarial meeting to assist an individual with referral or application. Directs the Secretary to develop procedures for an individual granted conditional lawful permanent resident status to apply for naturalization upon the removal of conditions. Whoa, this is nutso. This isn't border security. This is make them all citizens as easily as possible. Refugee processes for certain at-risk Afghan allies. Improving efficiency and oversight of refugee and special immigrant processing. Requires the president to enumerate in the annual refugee ceiling determination the number of individuals granted asylum in the prior fiscal year. Also requires the president to consider projected global resettlement needs published by the UN High Commissioner for Refugees when making this determination. It establishes a new reporting requirement in Section 207 of the Immigration and Nationality Act related to the number of refugee admissions. We've also got Section 3336, support for certain vulnerable Afghans relating to employment by or on behalf of the United States. Support for allies seeking resettlement in the United States. Section 3337 authorizes the Secretary of Homeland Security to waive any fee or surcharge collected in connection with a petition, application, or issuance of an immigrant visa to an Afghan national under specific sections of the Immigration and Nationality Act. They're just they're making it easier to become citizens here. And this is wild. 3338, reporting, Section 3401, under Title 4, promoting legal immigration. They're promoting legal immigration. This is how they're fixing it, everybody. This is good. This is for us. This bill is bullshit. I agree, Army Rangers. Unbelievable. Ooh. Employment authorization for fiancés, spouses, and children of United States citizens. Additional visas. It authorizes an additional 250,000 immigrant visas over the next 5 fiscal years, which would be divided between the family-based 32,000 per fiscal year and employment-based 18,000 per fiscal year visa categories. These visas would not expire until issued and are subject to 2 numerical limitations in Section 202. Children of long-term visa holders. Military naturalization modernization streamlines the naturalization process for non-citizen service members by striking Section 328 of the Immigration and Nationality Act and establishing a single pathway for naturalization for those non-citizens who have honorably served our country. Whoa! So if you're a non-citizen service member overseas and you're in the military with the U.S., they're striking Section 328 of the Immigration and Nationality Act to get them naturalized and become American citizens. What? That doesn't seem good. It amends Section 329 of the Immigration and Nationality Act to clarify that all alien or non-citizen nationals in the United States who have served honorably as members of the United States Armed Forces may be naturalized upon certification from the head of the executive department from which the individual separated under honorable conditions. This is crazy. This is crazy to anybody else. I've never heard of such a thing. Title V, self-sufficiency and due process, work authorization, employment eligibility. Subtitle B, protecting due process, access to counsel. This is information for asylum seekers, et cetera, counsel for certain unaccompanied alien children, counsel for certain incompetent individuals, conforming amendment. Amends Section 292 of the Immigration and Nationality Act to clarify that any individual subject to a removal proceeding before an immigration judge and a subsequent appeal proceeding has the ability to access authorized legal counsel, blah, blah, blah. Title VI, accountability and metrics. Section 3601, employment authorization compliance. It requires the Secretary of Homeland Security to submit a report to Congress that describes these actions taken by the Secretary. Okay. Legal access in custodial settings, credible fear and protection determinations, publication of operational statistics, utilization of parole authorities, accountability in provisional removal proceedings. All right. Report on counsel for unaccompanied children. Requires the Secretary of Health and Human Services to submit a report to Congress with information regarding unaccompanied children who received appointed counsel. Wow. What is this? Recalcitrant countries? What is this word? My God. Let's learn something. Recalcitrant countries. That means resistant countries. Requires the Secretary of Homeland Security and Secretary of State to jointly submit a report to Congress which lists all countries that deny, unreasonably delay, or place unreasonable limitation on acceptance of individuals ordered removed to such country. The secretaries must also brief Congress on the report and any measures taken to encourage compliance with removal orders, information regarding the individuals ordered removed to such countries, and conditions within, how do you say this word? Recalcitrant countries, which is like big words. Title VII, other matters, severability. Clarifies that the remainder of this act and any amendments made by it are not affected if any provisions, amendment, or application of such provision is held to be unconstitutional. Well, I got news for you. It seems pretty sketchy to me. Holy moly. This is guised as it's for the border. We care about the issues here, but really all the money's going overseas and helping facilitate illegals come into this country. It appears to me, just by reading this, as your average Joe layman who barely understands what this means, that's what it seems like to me. Wow. Definitely a big no, I think, for a lot of people. Let me go see these polls and see how many people have voted. We looked earlier. We had 7,500 votes from that B&O poll that they posted. I don't think I think it's ran out of time, has it? Yeah, I think it has. But a lot of people are opposing this. Holy smokes. Anyway, guys, that's where we'll leave it. This one has 2 days left. Let's see how many votes they have. Not many, but a large majority of people on these polls on X are saying no way. So we'll watch it. We'll see what happens. We'll be live again. I'll be live again tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, to talk about all the other news and events of the day. And also we'll recap this real quick. I just wanted to come on and let you know what's out there. This is nuts stuff, and more people are going to dig through this and be posting all the details. I'm looking forward to it. But that's it in a nutshell. Money grab, 118 billion, most of it going overseas to help fund these endless wars and provide weaponry and make it easier for people to come into the country. And that's what it seems like to me. But it's guised as something good for the border. I don't believe it. Well, folks, I'll see you tomorrow morning. Unless anything happens tonight, I'll go live if I want. But take care. God bless and Godspeed.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
'24 may be the year of a black swan event.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."